She kissed me goodnight, then crept back in to rob me blind. It was 2:13 a.m. when I woke up to the soft creak of our bedroom floorboards. Not loud, not alarming, just off. The kind of sound you wouldn't notice unless you were already halfway between a dream and a memory. I stayed still. I'd learned a long time ago that when something feels wrong, don't move. Just listen. In Afghanistan, that habit had saved my life more than once. It was the same stillness I was using now, lying in my bed next to the woman I had loved for 7 years. The woman who, unbeknownst to her, had just triggered every alarm in my mind without saying a word. She was slipping out of bed. Quietly. Too quietly. I squinted just enough to watch her silhouette disappear down the hallway. No bathroom light came on. No kitchen faucet. Just silence and the faintest glow bouncing off the wall from the living room. She hadn't taken her phone. I could see it still on the nightstand. But mine was gone. That's when I knew. I waited exactly 9 minutes. Just long enough to avoid suspicion, but short enough to stay in control. I pulled on my robe, moved silently across the hardwood floor, and stood just outside the archway to the living room. She was sitting on the couch, back straight, face lit by my phone screen. Not hers, mine. I recognized the cracked corner of the case, the same one she'd mocked me about fixing for months. Her fingers moved fast, confident, like she'd done this before. I stepped lightly onto the edge of the hallway, just enough to see what she was doing, just in time to see the name of the app she had opened, Vault Sync Pro. At first glance, it looked like any other finance tracker. Generic icon, vague name, harmless to anyone who didn't know better. But I did. Vault Sync was a spyware app, the kind that masks itself as a finance tool, but is actually used to mirror logins, capture banking credentials, and secretly transfer data. It didn't belong on my phone, and she knew it. She was using it. On me. I stepped forward, letting a floorboard creak under my heel just enough to let her know she wasn't alone. She flinched and looked over her shoulder, trying to hide the panic in her face. "Oh!" she gasped, trying to soften her tone. "You scared me." I stared at her. "What'd you do with my phone?" She blinked, just looking at the pictures we took at the lake. "Yours turned out better than mine." She smiled too quickly, too practiced. "I'll be back up in a minute," she added, almost dismissively. I said nothing, just nodded, turned around, and walked back upstairs with the kind of silence that made her think she'd gotten away with it. What she didn't know, what she never knew, was that I had already received an alert 6 hours earlier from my cybersecurity monitoring service. It had flagged an unauthorized attempt to access one of my sandbox accounts, a fake banking environment I created 6 months ago when I first suspected something wasn't right. That night was never supposed to be about catching her red-handed. It was about confirming who the enemy really was. And now there was no more doubt. Talia, my wife, my best friend, my partner, had just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She had used an app designed to spy on financial data, while I slept inches away from her, trusting her. But the thing she didn't realize, I don't lose sleep. I plan in silence. I think 5 steps ahead. And tonight was the beginning of a very calculated end. The next morning, Talia was all smiles. She made coffee, my kind, the one she used to say tasted like burnt dirt. She even tossed in a pancake breakfast with strawberries on top. No occasion, no apology, just sweetness that reeked of guilt dressed in sugar. I played along. I laughed at her jokes. I even told her she smelled nice. But behind the calm in my voice was a storm building. Because while she buttered toast, my phone, the same one she had tampered with the night before, was already uploading its logs to a remote terminal I controlled. Every tap, swipe, and download had been recorded. Even the moment Vault Sync accessed what she thought was my Chase banking portal. She'd fallen into the bait perfectly. The interface she explored looked real. Identical balances, transaction history, even dummy credit cards. But it was all fake. A sandbox. A digital decoy I created months earlier when small things started to feel off. Like how she'd started caring a little too much about our finances. How she always seemed to know when a deposit hit. How she began accidentally using my card instead of hers, even though we had separate accounts. Most men might have brushed it off as clumsiness or shared life stuff. But not me. I don't believe in coincidences when it comes to money and silence. By midweek, the app had pinged twice more, once when I was in the shower and once while I was out for groceries. She wasn't even trying to hide it now. That's what stunned me most. It wasn't the act of betrayal itself. It was the calm with which she committed it. She thought I didn't know. That was her first mistake. She thought I wouldn't notice. That was her second. And her third? Thinking I wouldn't retaliate. I began to tighten the noose in silence. Each night, while she slept, ironically more peacefully than I had in weeks, I worked. My laptop's soft glow lit the study as I duplicated metadata, stored screenshots, captured her device's geolocation patterns. I even cloned the app she installed, decompiled its source code, and re-engineered to backtrace any transfers initiated from my account. All without touching a single real dollar. But here's the part that would sting later. She wasn't stealing money. She was stealing an illusion, and she believed it. That's what fascinated me. She looked more relaxed now, as if the burden of pretending to be loyal had been lifted. Her kisses became more automatic, her smile more polished. She began dressing up for imaginary girl brunches and coming home with the smell of unfamiliar cologne that wasn't mine. She was preparing to vanish. Of that, I was certain. One night, I stood in our bathroom as she brushed her hair. I asked her casually, "Do you ever worry about cyber theft?" She chuckled without missing a stroke. "What do you mean?" "You know," I said, watching her in the mirror, people getting their bank accounts hacked, that kind of thing. She gave me that fake laugh she used when she didn't have a good answer. "Why? You worried someone's coming for your millions, Mr. Tech Genius?" I smiled. "Nah, I keep everything locked down." She turned, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "Good. You always were the smart one." And just like that, she walked out. I stared at my reflection. She had no idea she was already inside a trap. Every transfer she saw, every account balance, every pop-up notification, I controlled all of it. She thought she had access to $250,000 across multiple savings accounts. What she didn't know was that every dollar had been rerouted a month ago into a personal trust, one that legally excluded her name after I quietly amended our joint asset agreement. She had access to paper money in a glass vault, and she was so blinded by greed that she thought it was real. The following night, she made another move. I watched her on the camera feed, sitting in the kitchen, earbuds in, whispering. It wasn't a phone call. It was a video chat on her tablet. And though I couldn't hear the full conversation, one phrase stood out as she leaned into the mic. "He'll never see it coming. I'll get the money and meet you in Spain." Spain. The location in her voice made something inside me shift. This wasn't just betrayal now. This was an extraction plan. A clean break. She was planning to rob me, disappear, and live her best life with some unnamed man on another continent. I felt something strange. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Excitement. Because now I had everything I needed. She thought she was 10 steps ahead. But I've been quietly walking circles around her this entire time. Friday evening came with a strange stillness. No music playing. No candle scent burning in the hallway. No sound of heels clicking against the kitchen tile like usual when Talia came home late from meetings. Just silence, too clean, too empty. I stepped inside the house, gym bag slung over my shoulder, and immediately felt it. Air too still. Lights off. Presence missing. I called her name once, out of habit. No answer. That's when I noticed the shoes missing from the rack. The red heels she never let gather dust. Gone. My eyes flicked to the coat hanger. The designer trench coat was missing too. I dropped my bag slowly, walking through each room like I was checking the aftermath of a break-in. And, in a way, I was. The bedroom closet was half empty. Her drawer of silk nightwear pulled out and left ajar. Bathroom counter wiped clean. No hairbrush, no perfume bottles, not even a forgotten bobby pin. She was gone, and she'd made sure I'd know she had chosen to be. On the kitchen island, a plain envelope sat beside an untouched mug of tea. My name was written in bold black ink, but the way it was underlined told me more than the words inside ever could. Inside, two things: a handwritten note and a printed screenshot. The note read, "Don't bother calling. I'm not lost. I'm not confused. I've just finally chosen myself over your cold ambition. You'll survive. You always do. I'm finally happy, and that's something you never helped me feel. Goodbye." Beneath it, the screenshot, a bank transfer confirmation showing $250,000 pulled from what she thought was my primary savings account. My fingers didn't tremble. My breathing didn't change. I sat down, quietly, and stared at the number like it was just another line of code. I knew what she thought, that she had succeeded, that she had won. But her exit, it was her final mistake. I stood and walked straight to the study. No hesitation. No sadness. The air smelled like old books and cherrywood. And control. I logged into the secure terminal I'd built from scratch. No cloud access. No third-party backup. Just a private server connected to nothing but truth. My real assets were untouched. The offshore trust account, locked. The fallback investments, steady. The retirement bond, untouched. And the account she believed she had emptied, not only was it fake, but every move she made inside it was time-stamped, watermarked, and backed by audio and screen captures. She didn't steal money. She stole a story I had written for her. Even the app she used, Vault Sync Pro, was modified by me days after I discovered it. The version on my phone redirected every activity to a controlled environment. She thought she'd hacked the vault. She'd really just walked into a hall of mirrors. I clicked open a folder labeled Talia_master_log. There it was. Midnight login timestamps. Screenshots of every access point. Her face on the webcam reflection while she scrolled through my balances. GPS pings showing her route from the airport this morning. A boarding pass scan at LAX. Destination, Madrid. So, Spain wasn't just pillow talk. That was the plan. That was where her new life began. And probably where she'd meet him, the man on the other end of the whisper I'd overheard days ago. But what she didn't know was that I'd already prepared for this too. Weeks ago, I'd hired a private intel consultant, ex-FBI, to monitor her digital behavior once I confirmed the app install. He had access to the airline booking, the burner phone she used to communicate, and even the Airbnb profile under a fake name. And her companion? A man named Dante Vale. Fake ID, forged papers, flagged in 3 countries for online fraud. She had no idea. She thought he loved her. She thought she left a boring marriage for a romantic European escape. She had no clue she was running into the arms of a con artist, and that I knew exactly how it would end. But I wasn't going to interfere. Not yet. Some people have to walk headfirst into their own disaster before they realize they've been standing in someone else's spotlight all along. I leaned back in my chair, steepled my fingers, and stared at the transfer receipt again. Not with loss, not with anger, but with something colder. Satisfaction. She believed she had taken everything, but what she took had no value. Not in court, not in law, not even in life. And I was still here, watching, documenting, preparing. She had run off with a fake fortune and a counterfeit fantasy. But when she came back, and she'd be returning not to a husband, not to a home, but to a reckoning. 12 days. That's how long it took her to return. Not with guilt, not with regret, but with swagger. It was a Tuesday morning when I heard the garage door creak open. The security system pinged, and before I even turned my head, I smelled her perfume wafting through the marble hallway, like a ghost trying to haunt a house it no longer owned. I didn't rush to greet her. I didn't even stand. I was sitting at the dining table in a tailored black button-down, sipping my coffee, jazz humming low from the Bluetooth speakers, laptop glowing with a half-finished document on digital asset recovery. My world hadn't paused. It had only gotten sharper. The heels hit the floor first. Expensive, new, unnecessarily loud. Then came her voice. Well, miss me. I slowly raised my eyes. She looked like a magazine ad for betrayal. Tan skin kissed by European sunlight. Oversized sunglasses perched on her head. Suitcase wheels rattling behind her like applause she thought she deserved. I didn't answer right away. She laughed like she had already won, tossed her purse on the couch, and pulled a small silver flash drive from it, holding it up like a trophy. Honestly, she said, tossing her hair, I thought you'd at least try to stop the transfer. But you didn't. That's what surprised me. You just let it happen, like you gave me permission or something. I leaned back slightly. You sound proud. She shrugged. Should I not be? You set everything up for me. Password saved, auto login enabled. Honestly, thank you for that. She crossed the room, flopped down across from me, and set the flash drive on the table between us with a click. Don't worry, she said, smiling. I didn't spend it all. I figured you could rebuild. You always do. That's what you're good at. Playing safe. Playing boring. I tilted my head. So you stole my money to feel exciting? She smirked. I freed it. For a long second, I said nothing. Then I pushed my laptop toward her, rotated the screen, and pressed the spacebar. Her smirk cracked. The video started with footage from our home. Her sneaking into the study at 2:15 a.m., phone in hand, tapping through my decoy accounts. The next clip, her boarding a flight at LAX. Then her in Madrid, laughing with a man outside a cafe. Then Paris. Then Ibiza. Each shot time-stamped. Each one pulled from a combination of GPS metadata, public cameras, and sync device data she didn't know I had cloned. She didn't blink. I clicked once more. A new tab opened. Legal letterhead. A drafted case file. Premeditated financial fraud and unauthorized data access. Case hashtag 48-7AB. Digitally certified and time-stamped. Her hands slowly moved from confident to clenched. What is this? She whispered. I stood, walked to the sideboard, poured myself a glass of water, and returned with measured steps. That, I said, is the beginning of the end of your little fairy tale. She tried to laugh, but it cracked in the middle. You're bluffing. You're not actually going to. I cut her off gently. That flash drive you're so proud of? I cloned it last night, the moment you landed in L.A. Everything on it is backed up to a secure archive. Metadata, location pings, chat logs with your mystery man. And by the way, that little banking app you use wasn't just syncing, it was recording. Her eyes widened. No. Yes. Every keystroke, every swipe. And it sent logs every night to a mirrored server, along with unencrypted passwords, screen recordings, and the phone's unique identifier. She stood abruptly, knocking over the chair. You can't prove intent, she snapped. You can't take me to court over some fake account. There's no real loss. I smiled faintly. That's what's interesting, I said. You're right. There was no loss. You stole zeros and ones from a sandbox that doesn't connect to a single dollar of my actual finances. The theft was fake. I took a step forward, dropping a thick manila folder onto the table beside her flash drive. But the attempt? I said, voice razor sharp now. That was real. Intent to defraud is a charge on its own. And since you use an unauthorized spyware app, one outlawed in several states, you also trigger violations under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Her face had gone pale. I didn't know, she said softly. You didn't care to know, I corrected. You thought you were in control, but you never even knew what you were looking at. Just then, the doorbell rang. 3 soft chimes. Talia flinched. I didn't. I turned calmly, walked to the front door, and opened it. There stood Detective Ryan Maddox, Financial Crimes Division, tailored blazer, calm eyes. Beside him stood another man in plain clothes, holding a black folder and a tablet. Mr. Cole? The detective nodded. We spoke earlier. May we come in? I stepped aside. Of course, detective. I turned toward Talia. She looked like a ghost. A beautiful, sun-kissed, diamond-wearing ghost. who finally realized the walls weren't just closing in. They'd already locked. Talia didn't move. Asterisk, asterisk. Her eyes stayed fixed on the two men entering the room like shadows with names. Her mouth parted slightly, but no words came out. Just breath. Shallow, panicked breath. Detective Maddox set the folder down on the coffee table with deliberate precision. The other agent quietly tapped the tablet and angled it toward her. "Miss Brandt," Maddox began, voice as calm as a surgeon's, "we're here today on behalf of the Financial Crimes Division to ask a few questions regarding unauthorized access to a secure digital account and interstate wire fraud." "I didn't steal anything," she snapped to quickly, voice cracking. "He just said the money wasn't even real. So how can I be?" "We're not here to debate technical ownership," Maddox interrupted smoothly. "We're here to confirm timeline, intent, and third-party collusion." Her breath caught at the last word. Collusion. Because she knew what was coming next. The man she thought loved her, the one who toasted champagne with her across Europe, whispered promises in hotel beds, and told her she was brilliant, had already flipped. I didn't have to say it. I just stepped aside, walked back to the table, and opened my laptop. On the screen, a live photo. Alec Vale, her lover, being escorted in handcuffs through the lobby of a luxury condo in West Hollywood, fresh from custody, wearing the same linen blazer she once called dangerously elegant. Her mouth fell open. You gave them him?" I met her eyes, slow and steady. "No, he gave you." The tablet beeped. The agent next to Maddox swiped through screen after screen. Messages, flight confirmations, crypto wallet screenshots, all laced with GPS data and timestamps. Then came a recorded call, Alec's voice smooth and mocking. Talia was an easy mark. Thought she was running the con. Joke's on her. She gave me everything I needed, passwords, travel details, even her husband's fake bank layout. I just let her think she was in control. The sound cut off. Talia staggered back a step like she'd been slapped. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He lied to me?" "No," I said, sipping calmly from my coffee. "You lied to yourself. That's always been a problem." Detective Maddox nodded. "Alec Vale is currently in protective custody, under agreement to testify in multiple fraud cases. He's already submitted a signed affidavit confirming your participation in stage transfers and laundering attempts. That includes leveraging your husband's digital identity." Her hands began to shake. No, I didn't launder anything. I just... "You just accessed your husband's device without consent," the second agent said flatly. "Used unauthorized software to extract financial data and attempted to funnel perceived funds into offshore wallets." I stayed quiet. That was the power in this moment. Silence. Letting her realize the only person left defending her was her, and she was failing. "This is my life," she whispered, now shaking. "My job, my family, my reputation. They've already been notified," I said, standing now. "The HR department at Delridge Financial received a full package this morning. So did the state licensing board. Your parents, too. You sent it to my parents?" Her voice cracked fully now. "Are you trying to destroy me?" "No," I said. "I gave them the truth. You destroyed yourself. I just removed the blindfold." Talia collapsed on the edge of the couch, breath heavy, makeup beginning to run under her eyes. "You were never boring," she muttered, voice trembling. "You were terrifying." I didn't reply. The officer stood and prepared to leave. Maddox handed me a thin white document, the formal acknowledgement of evidence transfer. The other agent left a card on the table. "We'll be in touch," Maddox said calmly, and the two disappeared into the morning light, like a warning carried on the wind. Talia sat motionless. Then, almost like she couldn't help herself, she looked up at me with watery eyes. "You could have just divorced me." I looked at her, really looked. "You could have just loved me." There was no venom in my tone, no heat, just the final brick laid in the wall between us. She wiped her eyes, but the tears were smudged with too much mascara to hide the truth. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. I tilted my head. But you planned to rob me. That silence afterward, it was loud, like the universe itself had nothing left to say. It's been 11 months. The court case moved faster than expected, probably because Alec Vale never stopped talking. Every thread led to another. Every lie they told unraveled with precision. And every piece of evidence I had meticulously prepared dropped like iron dominoes in a courtroom that barely blinked before reaching a verdict. Talia avoided prison, barely. Alec didn't. He ended up sentenced to 10 years for wire fraud, financial conspiracy, and multiple identity theft charges. He cried during sentencing, not for remorse, for being caught. The system didn't care about his tears, only the trail he left behind. As for Talia, her deal kept her out of cell but didn't protect her from arrest. Restitution payments crushed her savings. Her employer blacklisted her across the financial sector. Her once pristine credit fell apart. She now lives in faded rental 2 states over, working front desk shifts at a gym that smells like mold and broken dreams. Every now and then, she sends an email. I never open them. As for me, I left everything behind. 3 weeks after the trial ended, I sold my consulting firm, disconnected from social media, and flew out of the country with nothing but a duffel bag and a name nobody knew. I landed in Reykjavik on a cold spring morning, stepped out of the airport, and finally, felt air that hadn't been corrupted by betrayal. I built something small, something silent, a digital forensics consultancy operating through proxies, with no nameplate, no interviews, no press, just precision. I help people now. People who were betrayed like I was. People who didn't have the tools to fight back until someone gave them a sword. I named it the Lighthouse Initiative. Because when you're drowning in someone else's lies, the one thing you need most is direction. Some nights, I still sit on the balcony of my cabin overlooking the icy waters, coffee in hand, wrapped in the kind of silence that feels earned. I no longer look over my shoulder, no longer double-check passwords. I am not hiding. I am at peace. And she, the woman who thought I was too boring, too trusting, too slow, now knows the truth. I wasn't boring. I was calculating. She mistook silence for weakness. She mistook kindness for softness. She mistook me, and now she lives with that forever. Closing words. You see, revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes, the best revenge is the one that doesn't yell. It whispers. It moves quietly. It rebuilds with power and purpose, while the ones who wronged you crumble under the weight of their own design. So, ask yourself, if someone betrayed you like this, would you burn them to the ground or build something higher in their shadow? Let us know in the comments if this story gave you chills like it. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that being quiet doesn't mean being weak. Subscribe to Lauren Stories for more true-style tales of betrayal, justice, and poetic endings. Because here, every lie has a consequence, and every secret eventually sees the light. Stay smart. Stay sharp. Stay watching.